Hey everyone, welcome to the Might Matter YouTube channel. I'm here trying to diagnose my Honda, and I'm going to spare you having to watch the entire video to find out what the problem was with my bike. I had hesitating acceleration, I had poor idle, and eventually a complete no start scenario. And I changed a bunch of stuff and did a bunch of things in this video trying to diagnose it, but the answer for my bike was bad fuel. This fuel is red, now it's treated with Stay-Bil, so that might be why, but I didn't know at the time that it was bad. So if you want to find out all the diagnostic things that I did trying to diagnose this bike right here, stay tuned and watch the entire video, and you can see I go through things like the carburetor, the vent for the fuel cap, even a plugged up muffler possibility, spark plug, things like that. None of those things ended up being the problem. Fuel was the problem. So easy one for you if that applies to your vehicle. However, if your powersports vehicle is still suffering from the problem, even if it's got fresh fuel in it, stay tuned and watch this video and you can try to find out what's causing the problem in your bike.
All right, let's rewind back a couple days and I'll show you what it used to be like before I fixed everything.
Barely running, as you can hear, barely running. I think once it warms up in a few seconds, it's going to stop. And then it won't idle, and then I have to use the throttle to make it idle. There you go. So that was choked. I'm going to unchoke it, give it a little bit of throttle. I have no choke, but the throttle is a little stuck on, I think, maybe slightly stuck on, so it mimics me having my hand on the throttle. So as you can see, it's quieter, doesn't like to idle, and doesn't like to accelerate hard at higher RPMs. So it's got a narrow band of usability, a narrow band of running, which is what I'm trying to fix by looking at the carburetor. All right, well, as you've been seeing, I've had some running issues with this Honda, so I'm going to try to work on the carburetor today and see if that's the problem. I read that maybe some of the ports or jets can be clogged. The spark plug I changed, it looked so-so. I didn't actually put a new one in, I cleaned it, but I do have a new one sitting here on the counter if I do want to change that. But for now, I'm just going to work on the carb. It sounds more like a carb issue. All right, here we go, removing the carb. So this happened last time I took this off. Check it out. More mouse crap everywhere. It's possible this is the problem. I just don't think it is. Let's see. So a couple years ago, I was doing some work on this, and it was pretty much the same situation when I took the cover off. There's probably a lot of poop in here. I don't know. Maybe I should be wearing gloves. Gross. Let's fire it up with no filter and with no mouse house in there and see if it makes any difference. Wish I knew what that knocking sound was. What do you guys think? I don't think it's an engine knock, but I don't know, maybe it is. sounds like an air leak or something, like an exhaust leak. Or is it the intake? Since there's no filter in box, maybe it's the air intake. Let's see.
Hours later, I was thinking about this sound and wondering if it was a clogged muffler with the exhaust gases coming back out through the intake. Turns out it wasn't the case, but it was my theory for a while.
I loosened this up with a wrench first because this one, just like the seat bolts, they were too tight for the drill, so I loosened it up with a wrench. Now it should be easy. Next, I'm going to be removing this cable right here, the nut on the end of the cable on the top, and then this one here. 2 cables for the throttle. Loose. Alright, to get this throttle cable out, you just pull the cable into the slot, pull it through the slot, and wiggle it out. For the second one down here, it's pretty much the same thing. I'll loosen this up. Alright, they're both off. The nuts, and then I gotta unhook it here. And I'm guessing I do that the exact same way. Alright, I'm gonna need 2 hands for this, but you can see it's the same basic idea. There's a slot right here. Take the tension off by pushing down on the throttle. Maybe I'll pull up on this side, and then it'll just come out the same way it did the last one. So now the choke cable and both the throttle cables are off, and I can start on, what do I want to do next? The fuel line probably? Yeah, I'll take this fuel line off right here where it connects to the petcock. It's probably the easiest place. I could take it off on the carb down there, right here, but I'll try the petcock. Seems like it'd be easy. Oh, and then of course the intake boot, intake hose here, and then the breather on the back, the intake on the back. Now we'll just do this bolt and this bolt, and hopefully that'll be it. I might use a socket on this one. It's fighting me a little bit. I don't want to use an open end because it'll strip. Oh, risky. I'm going to find a socket. Alright, I managed to pry off / break the hose clamp keeping this fuel line on. Now I'm trying to slip it off, but it's quite old. I might have to put the camera down, but you get the idea. Okay, at long last, the carb is ready to come out. Very good. Alright, what am I missing here? Might be a more elegant way to get this thing off, maybe sliding it out, but it's probably too gummed up. Alright, I took a different one off. I was going to take off this screw that's still on there, and instead I took off the one near my thumb. This one here. Came off very easy. Alright. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing with these. I've never actually taken apart a carburetor before. But I'm going to give it a go. Maybe I'll even use my drill. I promise I'll show you in a sec. So I know enough to know this is the float. Moves up and down to let more or less fuel in from the tank. This hole right here looks like it might be filthy. I'll spray some carb cleaner down there. I don't have an air hose, but I could figure something out. Boing! It's like another port of some kind here. Right there. I'll clean that out too. Kind of a fishing expedition for me. Got lots of icky stuff coming out now. Got stuff like this out of there too. And more bits like this. Just dust and crud. Not good, but I doubt the cause of the problem. While I'm at it, I guess I'll remove this float pin and see if I can see what's underneath here. I think there's like a hole or something underneath the float bracket here. Alright, floats off. There's quite a bit of crud in here. Look at all that. What is all that stuff? Of course I'm going to clean it out, but weird. Huh. Alright, this next part I think is the accelerator pump. It moves up and down, but I'm still curious what goes on inside here, so I'm going to open this up too. Hope I don't regret taking apart all this stuff, because as you've seen, I'm kind of just guessing. It's a little dirty. I think I'll smooth it out. It's almost getting a little rusty. This is 5,000 grit. That should do us, right? Looks a little better now. And I'm going to spray it all down, of course, and clean all these parts before I put them back in the carb. The last thing with this diaphragm is clean these out a little bit. So I use a little drill in here. Do not rip this thing. You don't have to wait to order a new one if you even can. Just make sure that you can see through them and they're clear. And we already cleaned these ports as well, so you can see through that one, and that one was clear, I believe, or at least I couldn't get it to flow any better than it already had been. So anyway, back together now. I wonder if that's supposed to be blocked off. This one right here doesn't seem to flow through. I mean, it's blocked off on this end, but so it's like it's supposed to be blocked off, but I just don't know how blocked off. Oh, that made a big difference. Look at that. Yes. All right, well, that's something. Diaphragm back in. I'm going to take it out, see how that looks. That other YouTube video I was talking about, he ran sandpaper down this middle one right here, the tall one. See the tall one? There's a pin in there. I might do that. Alright, I've sanded this little needle. Got that nice and smooth with the 5,000 grit. I sanded the main jet also. A couple of these holes were a little clogged, so I don't have a tool that goes inside them, but I blew on them. I blew in hard here and blocked off different holes depending on what I wanted to see if it was clear or not. I blocked off the end, of course, as well. And eventually they got a little better, and then I sprayed more carb cleaner in there, again blocking off some holes to put more pressure on the holes that were clogged. And then now when I spray on it, it all comes out. I don't know if you can see, I got fluids coming out of all these. So we're good there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but basically you want to check that all the holes have fluid coming out of them when you block off the end and spray it in this end. All looks fairly clean. Not a lot of gunk came out. I guess that's good. But I'm thinking about putting it back together now. And the other YouTube video I was watching says go all the way in and back it off 2 1/4 turns, he says, so try that. I'm kind of surprised these stay in place. They're so easy to get out, at least on this one. Kind of amazed they don't slide out. That's in.
Alright, it's future me here. Can you look at this picture and see what I'm missing? The eagle-eyed among you will know that the float valve, the float inlet valve, is missing. There's a tiny little pin-shaped or bullet-shaped pin that's supposed to go underneath the float right here that I forgot to put back in. It's still in my parts tray. And I wouldn't have even noticed, except I checked my parts tray when this was all back together and noticed this extra part. So I had to Google image it and put it back in properly. But just know that that's part of the reason the floats were angled down too far, as I was demonstrating here. Once the float inlet valve was back in, everything leveled out again with some small adjustments. So don't forget to put that back in with the spring.
All right, it's the next day. Late yesterday, I put the carb back on. It's the same thing in reverse as it was forward, so if you need to, just watch my video in reverse and you'll see how to put it back together. These throttle cables were a little tricky to get back in, but the short one goes on top and the long one goes in the bottom. And don't forget that screw I took. It was like the last thing I did before I took the carb out. That screw goes right here. Sorry, it's probably terrible lighting. Right here. So don't forget, that's where it goes. It took me a minute to figure out where it went. And drum roll, please. I put the carb back on, and it still didn't run properly. So you guys know from the beginning of this video, I spilled the beans already what the problem was. It was bad fuel. But I didn't know that at the time, so I put the carb back in. I took another look at the spark plug. It wasn't horrible. It was kind of fouled and a little old. I guess it was kind of horrible. So I replaced the spark plug, thinking maybe that's the problem. And it was pretty old and fouled a little bit. The shiny part is from when I cleaned it up last time. It's not naturally that shiny. I just shined it up myself. And replacing the spark plug didn't work. So then I really got to thinking and really got to just imagining all the things that it could be. I Googled a whole bunch of threads about similar engines. Someone suggested this hole right here might be plugged, but mine was clean. I took it off, blew on it, and sucked on it, and it was fine. So that's not the problem. Someone suggested the coil or the stator. Never checked into that. Thankfully didn't have to. I even thought, you know what? This is behaving exactly like the exhaust is blocked. Maybe a mouse got into my previously exposed exhaust pipe, just like they got into my air intake earlier. And maybe they made a home in the exhaust and that's clogged it all up, or it's rusted, or who knows what. This is the Supertrapp, by the way. So I was like, that might be it. That's gotta be it. So I took out this cover right here. Still, it wouldn't start, even though it was fairly exposed and I could see a little ways inside, and that wasn't it. So finally, as you know, I was like, well, let me just check the fuel. And the fuel was, let me show you. The fuel was old and it was tinged a funny color. But I thought the color might have just been because I had put Stay-Bil in, who knows how long ago, at least a year ago, maybe more. Probably more than a year ago. And look how red it is. And I was like, well, that's understandable. It's merely Stay-Bil in there. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but either way, I was like, gas is cheap, at least for a tiny little Honda. For test purposes, let me put in some new fuel. So I got some new fuel from the gas station down the road, and well, here's the result. One kick. So satisfying. I can feel a little bit around the sides. I mean, exhaust is definitely getting through, obviously. So I would conclude it was fuel. If there's a lesson to be learned from this, replace the fuel first if you suspect there's a fuel problem. Don't be like me and do a whole bunch of work. Now, I've got a tuned up carb, which is nice, so it's not a total loss. But I spent a lot of time fixing up the carb. I didn't have to, and it was just bad fuel all along. So happy to see this thing running. I'm going to take it up to Wisconsin pretty soon here, actually, in about 4 days. And I was hoping to get it running in my garage here in the city where I live before I left for Wisconsin, so I could carry it back with me and enjoy it that weekend coming up. So happy that it's all fixed. Thanks for watching. If you'd like more videos around the XL250S or other power sports or EVs, if that's your thing, hit me up, comment below, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for subscribing to the My Demander YouTube channel.